Hello and welcome to another video on this series of Sui blockchain. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about variables and data type. Remember in our last video, we ran our first Sui Move program with the Hello Sui Move, and we were able to test run that using the test option instead of sending it to testnet. And with that being said, we can get started. So first thing first, what is a variable? If you're hearing this for the first time, a variable is more like a container or a storage area where you simply keep your data so that you could reuse them inside of your program. And for every variable you create or for every container you create, you have to tell your program what type of information you want to store inside. Is it a number? Is it a sentence? Or whatever type of information you are going to be keeping inside. Now, just like in other programming languages, you have to define the data type exactly when you are creating the variable. It is highly advised you do that. Even though there could be options for you to not define the data type and allow the compiler to infer, but that's not advised, yeah, so always. And you have something that looks like this, let, which is a reserved word in Sui Move that allows you to create variables. And you have something like variable name, yeah, variable name, and then the type or the data type that would go into the variable equal to then the value you want to store inside. It's almost the same thing that we did here. This is for string. So let's try to create some variables and try to assign some of the available data types that are in Sui Move. First, we have Boolean data type, which support just true or false value. Yeah, true or false. And these are used mostly with condition checking. If something is true, you do this. If something is false, you do the other thing. This is not Sui Move code, right? It's just for illustration, so I'm going to take this out. And let's say, I am hungry. I am hungry, bool is equal to true. So for those that are coming from the Python world, you would be familiar with something like this because that's how Python define their variables and the data type and set the value to it, even though they don't use let. Yeah. So what we are simply doing is we're saying that we want to create a variable called I am hungry. The value it should expect is going to have a data type of Boolean, and we finally gave it the value of true. It could be false or true. It has to be any of these two distinctive values. Now notice how I am naming my variable I underscore am underscore hungry. It's called the snake casing, how you name variables. We have the camel casing where we could have like I, then am hungry, something like this. But in Sui Move, by convention, you are advised to use the snake casing. So when you have a variable that is made up of more than a single word, you use the underscore to join the words together. Also, you are advised to use descriptive variable names that could allow you to easily infer what that variable is all about by just looking at the name. Avoid using abbreviations, please. And here we have a Boolean value stored in a variable. The next type of data we have in Sui Move is the unsigned integers. And it might interest you to know that we don't have negative integers in Sui, if you're hearing that for the first time. Well, there are reasons behind that, and that's because most values in Sui Move are like transaction balances, right? And we don't want people having negative numbers, of course, as their balance. It's also to ensure that you could predict the outcome of some of the calculations you would be doing. So no negative numbers in Sui Move, even though you could work your way around that. And for the unsigned integers, it could be from 0 to, depending on the value you have, and that also determines on which type of unsigned integer you are using. We have the U8, we have U16, we have U32, and then we have U64, U128, and U256. The U256 is only available on Sui Move. Remember, we have Move outside of Sui that is used by authors, and we have Sui Move. So this 256 is only available on Sui Move. Probably it might be available the other Move with time, but currently it's only available on Sui Move. And for you to know how much like a value you could keep in a particular type of unsigned integer, let's say U8, you could do 2 raised to the power of 8. That's going to give you how much like the maximum value that could go into that particular data type. So let's say H is going to be U8. I'm not sure if there's anybody that we have people living, let's say Methuselah that lived about 900 and something years. So let's use U32. Sorry, U32. It's kind of a little bit difficult to type and talk at the same time. Oh. So let's say we have somebody of each 100, yeah. And then let's say amount, not advisable. I don't know what amount we are going to hold there, but one sweet feature about Sui Move is you could use underscore, of course, to represent numbers so that they are easily readable. And you could try different uint 8, uint 16, uint 32, uint 126, and all of those. Did I just say 126? So we are only going to try out uint 32 and 256. Of course, you could try out the other variant of these unsigned integers. Now, aside of integers and Boolean data type, we have other data types like the vector, which we're also going to be saying, as well as our strings, and then addresses. So when we talk about vector, just see it more like a dynamic list, right, in other programming languages, and it allows you to store multiple values at a particular time. So let's say positions, let's position, which is going to be a vector. The vector, what type of values are we going to store inside? Well, let's use U64. It's going to be equal to vector, and then we assign those values. Let's say 1, 2, 3, and we have that. So this is going to create like a list of these values that we have created in here. We also have the address as a type of data, which allows you to store, of course, you can guess, wallet address. So and we'll try to create a variable. I'm going to call the variable owner, for example. Let's say owner of a particular NFT or owner of whatsoever comes to your mind. It's going to be of address. That's the type of data we're expecting. And it's going to be equal to, I'm going to use a shorter form of address. So we're going to have at 0, X, and then 1, 2, 3. Remember, addresses are in form of hexadecimal, so that's just a side note. And then the final data type we're going to be looking at is a string data type. So there is no native support for strings in Sui Move. Instead, behind the scene, we use vectors to represent string. But then they provided a way for us which we could use the string that is found in the standard library. So before you could use that, you have to import string from standard library. You would notice all the other ones we use, we didn't import any of them, but when it comes to string, we have to import string. And then let's quickly try to create a string and store some values. So let's say name, my name or anybody's name is going to be it's going to be a string. I would be using the UTF-8. Now there are different encoding schemes when you're working with strings, depending on the type of value that are going to go in there. So we have code, width, gamma. Yeah, we'll put our semicolon at the end. If you have some computer science background, you might have heard about encoding schemes. We have ASCII and then we have the Unicode. So ASCII usually have limitations when it comes to special characters, emojis, and some Chinese letters. Yeah, I think so. Because of that, they came up with the Unicode, which is able to encode much more larger amount of characters, emojis, and special values. So you're good to go using this, or better still, if you want, you could use the ASCII right in here. But then I would be sticking with the UTF-8. So we have successfully defined a Boolean value. We've defined U32, U256, and then we have also defined a vector, an address, as well as a string. We can save that. So for us to actually confirm that this is working, we can simply go ahead and print out some of these values and see if everything works well. So for us to print, we have to use the print from the debug module, which is found in the standard library. So we are going to do debug and then print. Then what are we printing first? So let's print age, and then let's print again. Let's just print name. I think that should go. So on a normal day, when you define a variable and you do not use it and you run your program, you should get some warning telling you, oh, you have defined some variables and you're not using them. So it's normal. Every day in programming, warning are no problem except you have errors. So you could simply ignore those ones. As in the last video, we were able to run our program using Sui Move test. That's because we didn't want to publish this to the testnet. We just want to be able to see the outcome of what we are writing right in here at the terminal. So I'm going to run this and see if we get errors. We check why. If we don't, then we move on. Okay, so we have unbound type in current scope right in here where we define our vectors. Sorry, my bad. It should be U64, not U68. And I think, yeah, we're good to go. So let's rerun. You could see some of the warnings we're having because we have unused variable names. You could disregard that. Or if you don't want those warnings to show, then you could simply print out those values. You're not going to have those warnings. Yes, and we have our test run successfully. We have 100, which we define here as the age. We have code with Dama, which we define as the name and then printed it out. And finally, we have our hello Sui Move, which is the last thing that we define here and printed from our last video. There is one more data type that we could cover, which is like a constant. Now, when you create variables and you define them as constant, it means that the value you assign at the point you're operating that variable is not going to change subsequently when you're doing program execution, right? It's going to maintain that same value, and any attempt to change that value is not going to work. No, it's not going to work. So let's quickly define a constant. I don't know. Let's just say amount. The name has to be in capital letter amount, and then we define, let's say, U16 equal to, let's just say 10. And this is going to work perfectly well. So let me know in the comment section if you have questions trying to create variables or trying to define the right data type, or as well print them out. I highly recommend you go further to try to carry out some calculations with some of these data type, or try to experiment further beyond what we have in this video. And ensure you subscribe if you haven't, because more videos are going to be coming on this series. Thank you and have a great time.